Hey everyone, Clyde here. Welcome to Clyde Plays. Today we are going to be playing back a video for you. This was a live stream we recorded over on my Twitch channel. You can check me out there at twitch.tv/ClydePlaysLive. My friend Skada and I held a lively discussion with about 100 of you in chat where we talked about the upcoming 7th and 8th Brawls. I was about to say season of Brawls, but it's not the right term. The 7th Brawl and the 8th Brawl are coming up, one this month, in fact just in a few days, and then one in February. We are going to talk about all the ships that are possible for you to take in there, which ones we think you might see, which ones we think you won't see, and so on. A fair warning, we do have some slight audio problems with Scada's microphone in this, so you may hear him cutting out. I'm aware. You do not need to make comments down below. However, we're going to work on this technical issue for these kinds of streams in the future. But without further ado, let's get into the discussion. I think you'll find this very lively. I've put a lot of bookmarks in there to make it as easy as possible for you to navigate around to the parts of this discussion that you like. So check the description below for those. Again, hang out with us on Twitch if you want to catch us with the live show. And we've got a link to our Discord down in the description as well. Thanks for watching, guys. Enjoy the discussion. All right, guys, so for the rest of, not the rest of tonight's stream, but for a little bit here, we are going to talk about Brawls. Brawls is an upcoming event. If you haven't ever taken part in Brawls and you like playing in non-random battles, definitely take a look into Brawls. We're going to talk about what Brawls are, what are the rewards you can get, what are the rules for Brawls, what ships make sense for Brawls. We'll talk about all of this. There are 2 Brawls events coming up. And so without further ado, let me go to the right page on my stream deck. Let's go ahead and just get to those. So these are the 2 events that are forthcoming. They call them Brawls. So the 7th Brawl is what you might call, is like akin to the 7th season of Clan Battles, right? So it's not like the 7th Brawl season, it's the 7th Brawl. It's weird language, but it's how World of Warships talks about this. The 7th Brawl starts up on the 24th, and that is the reason we rushed to this. Normally, I try to do these kinds of discussions and a little bit further in advance. I like to plan for them and get that information out there, get people squared away so that we can talk about this, and so everybody knows to show up. But obviously, when they announced Brawls here recently with the last patch update, maybe I wasn't paying attention or whatever, but they're pretty soon. So the 24th is coming up quick. Today is the 20th. So we wanted to make sure we had this discussion ahead of when that happened. Ice Cube says, are these one-time rewards or you earn up to that amount based on wins? It is based upon wins. So they didn't have a specific list of how the layout works, but essentially as you play through, there's a certain number of victories, and as you get to those victories, you'll get pieces and chunks of these rewards. So it's not an all or nothing thing. This is something you usually can earn incrementally, and I suspect that's going to be the case this time around. Do you have any recollections for how that worked in the previous seasons of Brawl, Scott?
Last season we played, I feel like it was 6s. It was 3v3 with 6s, and I feel like you had to get, wasn't it like in the low 40s to get all the wins? It was like every 3 wins you finished a quest or a mission, and then the whole thing at the end was where you got the lump of, like, the pile of coal. I don't know, it was like 10,000 coal or something.
Yeah, and that's what Tango fan is saying too. Yeah,
I feel like it was 40, 41 or something like that, because I remember you and Keaton and I really hit it hard, and I think we also had Whisper, our other clanmate. I remember playing a bunch one weekend when it was 6s.
Yeah, and I will say that it took a lot of wins to get done. Like, this isn't something that everyone's probably going to be able to finish. But if you enjoy playing Brawls, if you think this is an interesting thing to do, definitely, I think there's some good rewards to be gotten there. I'm glad you guys pointed out that the lump of coal came at the end. I had forgotten about that. So I'm glad Tango fan mentioned that in chat. Thank you, Tango, and Scott, of course.
I don't remember how much it was. It was like 8K or 10K, and I didn't. I know you've got the rules up.
Yeah, it's 10,000 in the 7th Brawl. I didn't have the prize information for the 8th Brawl. That one's not until February, but it's coming up. Let me go over the rules here really quick. It starts on the 24th of January, and it only lasts 1 week. So the 7th Brawl is going to run from the 24th to the 31st. The way this works, it's very much a brawl, but it is 3v3. Run to the Ease. Run to the Ease says, it sounds like randoms, but with only 3 ships. It kind of is. Obviously, it's best played if you get 3 people together, get to a division, get on Discord, and then you're communicating. There's a lot of there's a lot of value placed on every single ship, and so anytime you lose a ship, it's a huge blow to your capability as a surface action group, as a battle group or whatever. So it's very intense, and I like that part very much. I haven't seen them say divisions are or are not allowed, so I'm going to assume that they are. They have been in historical versions of this as well, and so I'm gonna presume that we're still gonna be able to do brawls again. The restrictions, of course, those are always critical to understand, as there's no more than 2 ships of each type for enemy team. That is, no more than 2 battleships, no more than 2 destroyers, no more than 2 cruisers. With these being tier 5 ships, there's no aircraft carriers to worry about, and with them being 5s and with subs being removed from the game, we're not going to have submarines or aircraft carriers in this mode as well. So that's something to consider when you're talking about your ship picks. For the 8th Brawl, the rules are similar, but not the same. It's actually only 2v2, which I'm not sure I like. What do you think about the 2v2 format, Skada? Your thoughts, your takeaways from that?
I feel like we did 2v2 once before. I think it was 6s. Maybe it was 3v3, though. I don't know. I think it's kind of funny that you mentioned that the 2v2 doesn't come out till February. I feel now that that's going to be like Valentine's themed.
It's a lover's package. Yeah, sure.
Couples, but no, I don't know. I think the 2v we were talking about, and we'll get to it when we talk about boats, but I think the 2v2 is weird because it's kind of weird. Then what boats do you take? What makeup? I think it's different. I know we'll try it. I don't know if it'll be any good. I think it'll be in 3v3. We've been really successful in the past. I feel like in 2v2 that you're a lot more likely to run into teams where it's like just 2 real world beaters.
Just 2 Unicum players, skills for days. Yeah,
I just feel like in 3v3 we've been able to fight that better, but I feel like in 2v2 it's going to be harder. But we'll see.
Ice Cube says 2v2 makes it easier to div, and LDP points out that they did 8s in 1v1, right? So like, I mean, they've done all kinds of wacky brawl configurations in the past. When I look at the 7th brawl, I like the 3-ship format. I like tier 5s. I know that's not necessarily the most popular opinion that's out there in World of Warships, but I do think that this is an interesting setup. When I look at the 2v2, man, there's so much pressure on those 2 players. Either one of them going down is a huge loss, and I do worry that that'll be pretty intense. But it's a brawl, right? This isn't a fencing match. This isn't a delicate work. This is a brawl, and so I think the 2v2 format is perfectly within the bounds of that definition. The restriction for 2v2s are no more than 1 battleship. So you can't just take 2 battleships and roll in there, big, bad, and tough. You've got to bring either a cruiser or a destroyer. With this being an odd tier again, tier 7, there's going to be no fear of carriers or submarines. And of course, submarines, again, being out of the game at the moment, are not going to be there. So again, looking at just cruisers, battleships, and destroyers. Anything else on the format or, the rewards or any of that stuff, Skada, that's of interest to comment on, do you think, at this point?
I mean, I think the format's fun, and I'm glad they brought it back because I know we've enjoyed doing it in the past. But I do think that the number of wins you need, depending on how it is this time, I think last time the number of wins you needed to get to win out was a bit excessive. And I think it would be really hard to do if you weren't divved. I think if you were just dropping randoms, we know what it was like, right? Is because we were divved, and we would fight teams that were just like 3 randoms thrown together, and they were at a big disadvantage. So I think that makes it harder for folks. So it's a good comment that 2v2 makes it easier if you've just got one friend that you play with, or you can grab a division or a clanmate or something and make it a little easier to get through the things. I'd like to see the amount of wins it takes to finish it, cut by a third. But
Yeah. And I looked around for that information. So you sent me hey, they sent this information about the Brawl stuff this morning. I rebuilt this layout so to add that information after work today and put this all together. I was like, oh crap, scramble. And I was all getting this stuff ready to go. And I looked around to see if they had information about the progression, the rewards, when you're going to get them. When you give me this card that's over, I guess on this side of the screen, that says 7th Brawl rewards, 10,000 coal, 80,000 captain XP, 2.25 million. I'm like, okay, cool. How do I get it, right? I'm hoping that that's a little bit more reasonable, especially because it's only a week, right? I know that they want that Brawl to be some sort of it's like a scrap that we have to go do, and it's crazy, it's fast, it's furious, it's fun, and we do all of that really rapidly in just a week's time. But if you gave me 2 weeks, I think a lot more people would get there. Going back to your comment about divisions, 100% of the time, I will say it is way easier to do this if you can scrape together a division of 3 folks for 7th or 2 folks for the 8th brawl. When we were playing, I would always be like, "Oh, good, it's 2 guys in a division and another person, right?" And I'd be like, "Cool. Well, we have a good chance this time because the coordination is just not as strong there. So if you can take a group together, you're going to have a much better chance of getting through the brawl. And even wins, losses aside, if you're really just thinking about the rewards, if you think those rewards look valuable to you, that's something that you can get faster if you go with a more coordinated team who's on voice comms and things like that. I think that's a big deal." Ice Cube asks, "How long do the matches usually last?" I feel like they were between 6 and 8 minutes. Like, you can do them pretty quick. Skada, did you?
Yeah, it depended on the map. When we did last time we did it, it was 6s, and so I played CV a lot when we were doing it.
Yeah.
And that, if the other team didn't have a CV, it went a lot quicker. Just because
Yeah.
it was, I was just dirt bagging people with the Arc Royal, and it went really, it wasn't bad. The maps, it really just depended on the maps, because you'd get that one configuration that was epicenter on 2 brothers, and that one could be dragged out a long time. Have everybody sitting in each of the rings, just kind of waiting for somebody to give up and push in, and it was that one could drag out. So it just depends. I feel like in general though they were under 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think they were pretty fast. Thank you, AB Mike and Brodiaga, for the follows. I appreciate that. We're glad to have you join us here tonight for the show. Of course, this is not our normal programming. It's a special event, but we're glad to have you join us just the same. Yeah, I think the games are fast. I mean, they're not fast enough necessarily that you're like, wow, I can rip through 4 or 5 of these in the time it takes me to play a random, but they are quicker. And there's an interesting like ebb and flow to the way these matches work. In fact, let's go over and we'll throw up the maps while we kind of keep talking about this. I've got a little loop of the maps that we can see here. As you're playing these battles, there's a little bit to be said for waiting and seeing, but there's more to be said for getting in there and getting the work done. I would find that on most of the combat or most of the maps that we found ourselves in combat on, there were very few that were slow, tactical, methodical maps. A lot of it was very much about getting in there and scrapping fast. This is not playing like it's supposed to, but let me see what's up with it.
Yeah, we had this map last time, and this one tended to be like the approaches. We almost always took the same approach in the 3v3. Last time we couldn't take 2 BBs.
There we go.
Right?
I think that's correct. Yeah.
Because it was 6s, so I remember I'd take CV. It was either CV or BB, I think. That sounds
yes.
Right.
So we had to take a cruiser. I think a cruiser and a destroyer. Maybe you could take 2 cruisers, but it was CV or BB, not both.
Yeah. So this time, without having the CV, it'll be different. I think pushing into these, I think a lot of the approaches are going to be the same. You're just going to get there slower because it's 5s. Right?
Yeah, and looking at a lot of these maps, the spaces are not big. I remember even in the tier 6 brawls, when you would spawn in, you'd spot the enemy team pretty quick, and they were within gun range of your battleships. So you're going to wind up in this position where combat is ready, and it's ready right now. And like you say, I don't think you're going to be going real fast because of the tier 5 nature of things. Most of these maps, it feels like the approaches are pretty open, but there's enough island play in there that I think that's going to be a factor as we look at these, just kind of as they're flashing by here. I don't really think that we've got the time right now, and I certainly haven't studied these maps enough to talk about them in detail and be like, this is the strategy for Land of Fire. But I did want to bring them and just put them up here so you guys can kind of see where you're going to be fighting these brawls as you think about the ships for the rest of our discussion today. But yeah, I think there's a number of these that have some open water areas, and then there's a few that are a little tighter with islands. I think islands are available on all of them, so you should be able to play just about any of the types of ships, the long-rangey guys or the closer ones. Bowmaster says, just draw a line from the destroyer to the center of the cap, and you'll be all good. Yeah. So anyway, maps aside, we are gonna switch over to our next set of slides. So we talked about the Brawls rules. We talked about the maps that are going to be available. And of course, we talked about some of the rewards. Now, what we want to do next is kind of walk through. Brawl 7 is going to be tier 5 ships, as we said, and Brawl 8 is going to be tier 7 ships. So we're going to kind of walk through those classes. And talk about ships that we think are going to be good. Last time we did a discussion like this, we talked a little bit about having a list of all of the ships that are available to choose on the side, and we've taken that suggestion. I think that actually might have come from you, Skada, and we pulled that into these slides, if you will, so that we can. Look at all of those while we're discussing. And chat, you guys are welcome to comment. We'd love to get inputs from you guys as we go. Do you care what class we start with? I was going to go Battleship, Cruiser, Destroyer. You got a preference?
I don't care.
All right,
whatever you got set up.
We'll do it. I can go in any order. I'm so excited. So these are the tier 5 battleships for the 7th Brawl. We've got a list of all the ships on the far side over there. And then I'm going to place our picks here in the middle. So Congo, New York, Piotr Veliki, Derflinger, Koenig, Iron Duke, Britannia, and Cavour. All the ships in black there are tech tree ships. The ships that we've placed in the gold text are premium ships. Ice Cube asks if there are any banned ships. I believe the answer is no. And I don't.
Not that I've seen.
Yeah, and I don't think they tend to ban ships for brawls. They're such a short event. It goes so quickly. They just kind of run, with whatever you got. Bring what you got, right? So I've thrown our picks up in there. Skada, let's kick off to you. I've been talking too much here. We'll throw it to you to run through your ships first, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if my ships are the right ships. I just thought about stuff that I would play if I'm going to play Battleship, and we were trying not to make them all dirt bags. So Koenig's a ship anybody can get. I like Koenig. Its guns aren't huge, but you can brawl with Koenig pretty well. It's got decent armor. And it does have relatively long-range secondaries for a tier 5 German, so you can get in a push with that. I think we both obviously picked Julio because Julio. I mean, you statistically look up Julio and it's overpowered, and there's a reason. That's why we put it there. We're both really good in it. It's probably one, if we were going to play Battleship, we'd both want to try using. Julio's not exactly a brawly ship. He doesn't have like great up close armor. But I wanted to put it on here because it's so powerful. Agincourt, which I know you got in Christmas boxes. I got it last year during the Jutland event when it was more expensive to get. It's going to be up for sale. Is it up for sale already?
I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, Tango Fan says it's for sale in Asia.
So it's this week's.
Yeah.
It's this week's premium. Then it'll be in the premium store tomorrow. And that's fine.
Which fits with the brawls coming up, right? It's nice.
It'll be a good ship for this. Its secondaries are so accurate. They're long range, like 8.3 or something, and they're Massachusetts accurate.
Yeah.
And it's got 7 turrets at 2 barrels apiece.
Guns. Yeah.
It's an insane ship. I mean, it has no AA, but you don't need it for this. It'll be really good in the. I put Oklahoma on there for the same reason. Oklahoma is a secondary American tier 5 battleship, which I don't think you can get easily. You had to get it during the event they put it out in, and I don't think anybody can get it now. I don't even know if it was in Santa boxes. It might have been.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I already had it from the event when it came out, so I'm not sure if it was. I don't remember if it was on the list or not. Yeah,
and it does have larger caliber guns. So there a lot of the battleships at this tier have relatively small guns. Look at the main batteries across, and it's a lot of 305s, right? Koenig's got 305s.
Yeah.
Agincourt has 305s, right? But you get up to Piotr Veliki, New York, and Oklahoma, Texas, and Congo, and that's where you get 356s. And so out of the 356 size ships, I'd probably play Oklahoma. Its reload's kind of slow. It has that nerf they started doing last year on battleships where they wanted to bring down if they wanted to nerf a battleship, they just made the reload over 30 seconds. Which is a bummer. But Oklahoma, I know you and I both have our own built for secondaries because it's hilarious. And so I think that'd be good for this mode too. Its armor's okay. It's a dreadnoughty kind of battleship. So
Forrester 1980 says, I just completed the Oklahoma mission like 3 weeks ago. I didn't know you could still do it. That's cool. He says they say great secondaries. Only way to play the OK. And I agree. one of my early videos on my YouTube channel, and you can still find it, is me unlocking the Oklahoma late at night on stream and going, what even is this boat? And going in and trying to figure out why anyone in their right mind would play it. Because in every statistic, it is worse than the Texas by just a little bit, except for secondaries. And I said, oh, it's a secondaries boat. Like I was figuring it out live on stream. You can still watch it on YouTube if you're interested, but it's a funky boat. You're right. I think it could have a home here in a brawly sense. I don't think it punches quite as well as Texas, which is why Texas made my list and Oklahoma did not. But the secondaries fit right in a brawl, don't they?
Yeah, that's the only reason it made my list.
Yeah, and I guess you've covered your ships, right? So I'll start at the bottom of my list. You've got Agincourt, just like I did. Again, secondaries, 14 main battery guns, and you can Citadel cruisers with the Agincourt's HE. I think that makes it a kind of a strong pick. And again, if there's no pesky airplanes around to give you trouble, I think the Agincourt is a solid pick for this. I don't know if I think it's the strongest pick. I personally would probably perform better in Texas or Giulio Cesare. Those are two boats where, you pointed out, Giulio's not really a brawler, right? It doesn't have secondaries like some of our other boats do, but it's a very good, reliable main battery battleship. And I think of Texas kind of in the same way. With Texas, you're sort of wasting its good AA because there's no airplanes to worry about. Maybe the occasional spotter plane or fighter plane somebody might put up over an island. But it's really kind of not useful there. But I do like its gun handling a little bit better than Oklahoma's. Although I'm glad Oklahoma made your list because I think it's a useful ship for discussion. Berger says Viribus with the little heart there in chat. Viribus made the list because it's got 12 guns. Viribus has 12 guns, terrible AA, doesn't up tier well. They're 305s, so they're not that big. But at tier 5, Viribus is kind of a terror. And people don't think about that ship as being really strong. I think it could be really strong at this tier. And I'm kind of curious to see how it would perform. I don't know if I'll have a chance to slide in with it and give it a try. But I think I'll try to either take it myself or encourage somebody else to take it as we go. And then I felt like I had to throw one of these mid-tier Italian battleships in here too, because Conte di Cavour with its SAP is going to be really great at Citadel and cruisers, and people aren't going to be able to take two battleships in here. And so we don't think we're going to see two cruisers. I don't think we're going to see two destroyers, although you might a little bit. But I think Conte di Cavour is going to work against angled battleships with superstructure hits with the SAP to pen through those lightly armored areas, as well as punching up cruisers. I don't think it's my favorite ship to play. I don't find it tons and tons of fun to play in randoms, but where it isn't up-tiered, and that's such a nice thing to be thinking about with these brawls, is we're not being up tiered, and so we have the opportunity to actually run these ships against their peers, and so it makes some of these ships kind of come to the forefront for us.
Yeah, quickly, Brand asked in chat, what's the fastest tier 5 BB? That's Congo. All the Congo variants is the fastest. It runs 30 knots. I think Giulio's second at like 27, and then probably Derflinger. And Derflinger's definitely up there and is pretty fast too.
Yeah, Congo is fast. Congo didn't make my list, although back when there were only two battleships in the game, it was Congo and New York at tier 5. I personally preferred the Congo because of that speed. New York is so slow, and that's true of Oklahoma. It's true of Texas. You're not going to chase anybody with your Oklahoma secondaries, right? But because it's a brawl, you're probably going to come and meet each other in the middle of the match. I enjoyed Congo's not main battery, it's top speed. Limited number of guns. Is it 8 guns, I think, on Congo? And they're big.
They're 356s. Congo's guns hit hard, but the reason I wouldn't pick it,
the dispersion is a problem.
Other than just not liking IJNBBs, but its turret traverse is so punitive in a brawl. When you don't have, like, Oklahoma has slow turrets, right? Agincourt has slow turrets, but your secondaries are doing a lot of work. In Congo, you got to get those turrets around, and I'd be worried about doing that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I just wouldn't pick Congo, but Congo is fast. It is the fastest. It's looking, what did I say? Giulio's second. Derflinger's at 26.5 knots. Piotr Velki is also 26.5 knots.
That's faster than I would have thought the Piotr was.
Yeah. Well, we should have assumed, right?
Yeah.
And that's a good battleship too. And I think if you had that and you wanted to use it, it's going to be a tough battleship to play against, right? So
yeah, I think so. Especially in that closed tier environment, right? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was its guns hit hard. It has crazy velocity and pen because it's Russian, right? So if you look
Yeah.
at if I look at the main battery stats on those things, I'm curious. I've got a feeling that Fyodor's AP probably has like the most pen tier. Actually, New York and Texas do.
They got the most pen. Is that what you said?
Yeah, 446 millimeters at 12 kilometers, which you're going to be fighting inside 12. Fyodor's is
Yeah.
only 440. Anyway,
Yeah.
but that's another thing about Julio, right? Julio's is 379 with 320s because of the gun velocity, which is why we like Julio, because you can nuke things with Julio. I don't know how Julio will do in this format, though, because everybody's kind of coming at each other. You know, a lot of our greatest hits in Julio are at the start of a match against 5s and 6s where you see some Omaha driving broadside and
Yeah.
just wipe them out. So.
Yeah. Well, that coordinated play changes a lot of things, right? And we're taking some time to talk on this slide about a few different things, but that's okay. I think this is good conversation for this discussion. The coordinated play changes the way all of these boats feel, right? If you've got a team that's actively supporting each other, they're on voice in their headsets, they're doing things like that, they're trying to, all of them are focusing on where the enemy battleship is, trying to avoid getting the bad angles or those crossfires, right? And crossfires are hard to get in a 3-man team, right? If you got 3 people on your team, it's tough to spread them out such that you get that, you know, that crossfire, those angles against you or against others. Anyway, a couple of things there. I just looked. Koenig's turrets turn even slower than Congo's, but there are more of them. And so that kind of nullifies some of that impact. I thought that was kind of interesting because I really liked the Koenig when I played it. It almost made my list. And then when I saw that it made yours, I said, I'll switch to Conte de Cavour. And then we can talk about both. Because I thought the Koenig was accurate and reliable and stuff like that way back when I played through it. And I bet you it still will be a really reasonably reliable ship.
Conte de Cavour is a good pick, too. I mean, it wasn't like a week or two ago on stream we were playing down in those tiers. I think I was playing Texas and having to try to hold a cap against a Conte and angled. It didn't matter. He shredded me.
Yeah.
His salvo, every one of those salvos just ripped me up really good. So if you know where to aim with SAP and you're competent, that's a powerful ship at that tier. You know, and if you don't have a DD that's whipping in and torping you out, right? So that's what you're hoping for in this scenario, is that if you're the battleship, that you're holding your ground against something like that, and then you don't have to worry about it because some Minakaze is killing them. So.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of what we've got for what we think might be battleships that you're going to see. Now, last time we did this, we talked about what are you not going to see? And I found that to be a very interesting question that you kind of had come up with. Like, as we look at this list of ships, what do you think people are not going to bring to the yard? What's the anti-milkshake, as it were?
I mean, I would have said Varibus Unitas, but you put it on your list.
I know. I ruined it for you. But I mean, if you think so, let's talk about why. Why not Varibus?
Well, I don't think it's a premium that everybody has for starters.
For sure.
I don't dislike that ship, but I don't know that I would use it for this. I think if I had to pick a tech tree boat that you're less likely to, it's probably a toss-up between Britannia and Iron Duke. And Britannia's guns aren't terrible, but both of those ships are just kind of, you know, they just exist. You know, you're going to see the German ships because of the Wereboos. I think you're going to see an awful lot of Derfling.
I was going to say, I think Derfling is coming out in force. I don't know that I think it's super powerful, but I think it's going to be out there.
Yeah, but I think if I had to make a list of stuff, you know, from what you're least likely to see, if I'm not including, I mean, Oklahoma too. I don't know how many. It was kind of hard to get, but
yeah,
you know, I don't think New York, Britannia, Iron Duke. I think some of those tech tree boats that are old. You know, probably whatever the weirdest ARP Congo is. Let's say ARP Haruna. I don't know.
Or Haruna.
Yeah. I actually, you know what? It's going to be HSF here, right? Because I'm the only idiot that bought that. Well, Malarkey was in chat. I guarantee Malarkey has
here.
it.
He's got it.
Yeah, Malarkey certainly has it. But yeah, nobody has that. So that might be the thing you don't see because it's just really rare and weird. But
yeah, for sure. Black Mamba Jamba asks, "What's good about Viribus?" It's got a lot of guns, so I think it's a 12-gun battleship, and so I think that's going to be the reason why it might make an appearance. I agree with you, though. I think it's not commonly held. There are fewer ports that have that battleship than have any of those tech tree ships, right? And fewer ports that have that than have Texas, right? So I think you're right. The sales out there are going to be the thing that keeps Viribus from showing up. But it does have 12 guns at 305s. Those are going to pen a lot of things. They're not going to overpen much. I think they could work out that way, Mamba Java. So maybe we'll see them. I don't know that we really will. I think Burger's going to run it. If I had to look at that list and pick ships that I think would not be showing up, I would pick Iron Duke and Bretagne. Um, like you said, they're older tech tree boats that just don't have a huge following that hung with them for very long. Iron Duke I found to be really bad, and people have told me I'm wrong about that, so maybe I am. It does have decent HE DPM, but in brawls, you need to be doing big alpha damage. You can't play slow. You can't burn people to death, and you'll find that that's one of the problems with a lot of the cruisers that exist out there too.
Yeah, the one claim to fame I had when I leveled the British battleships with Iron Duke was shooting down some ungodly number of planes.
Wasn't it like 90? It was like a lot.
It was a lot. It was like
a
60 or 70. It was a lot. And that's so in this scenario, that's like the only good memory I have of Iron Duke, and it doesn't apply. So,
Meat Pie Man says your picks are the yellow boats. Our picks are just the ones in this blue box here in the middle. I can't. My mouse won't render on the screen when I'm doing this. But all the premium ships are yellow. Tech tree ships are in black text. Cool. Gotcha. No worries, Meat Pie Man. Turret Traverse on the Iron Duke is terrible, says Brand. That's true. It is the worst in the game at tier 5. 72 seconds base. It is awful. Meat Pie Man, thank you for the follow. Most fun ship to say is Oktoberskaya Revolucja. Yeah, I agree. Tater Dog, welcome. Can we get a shout out for Tater Dog, Bowmaster, if you don't mind? Tater Dog is another streamer. Sends a lot of raids our way because of scheduling working out that way. Black Mamba Jamba says New York is slept on. I think New York is actually a really strong ship. I think if I were looking at it, I'd run my Texas because I can put a 21-point captain on there, whereas I can't do that on New York without spending money or captain XP. But I think New York is a strong ship, and people who have a good captain on there should definitely consider running it. All right, guys, that's what we've got for battleships. Let's go ahead and clear this, and we will bring out cruisers. Now, our list of cruisers is extremely long. I put it in 2 columns. In fact, I think for most of the rest of these, we put them in 2 columns, but there are a lot of boats on here. I did put the Chungking, which I think is the tier 5. I think that's the right ship there. I don't know if it's going to be available during this brawl or not, but I put it there in case we're going to discuss it. I don't know that it will be because I have the 6, but I don't have the 5. Do you know anything about that?
You'll be able to get it on Monday.
Okay, so maybe you would be able to play it out then.
It's the reward for the second round of the missions that starts on Monday, I think. It starts on yesterday. It said it started in 5 days, so I'm pretty sure it starts on Monday.
Nice. Okay, so that's why I put it on that list because I was like, I bet you this is coming out and we'll be able to try it out. I don't know enough about that ship to recommend it. These were our recommendations. This list is short. Skada, why do you think? Why? I guess when I look at our recommendations, I don't know. I felt like I couldn't come up with a lot of good ships for this list. What was your thought process coming up with Exeter and Marblehead?
Oh, I don't want to play cruisers in this, and I probably won't. So I just put something. I gave you some ships put on here so we can have something to talk about.
Of course, thank you.
Yeah. I speaking of Chungking though, briefly, Chungking might be interesting. You know, Chungking's a British style cruiser that's got it's got like 152s. It's actually probably the largest caliber guns of anything in that whole line. So I don't know. It might be interesting, but it's just.
Does that one have smoke? Do you know? I don't have the information on it right now. And maybe chat if you know. Throw that.
Yeah, I think they all have smoke.
I think they do too. And so that would be powerful. One problem with smoke, and we observed this in the Tier 6 clan battle season as well, is if you've got a battleship, a destroyer, and a cruiser, and your cruiser smokes up and nobody can see the destroyer, your battleship suddenly becomes the focal point for all enemy damage. Yeah. And that is dangerous in a brawl. You need to be splitting that damage.
Yeah. So I picked Exeter because I like Exeter is a ship I've had a really long time. Might be one of the first premiums I ever bought. I like it. I like the way it plays. I've had good games in it, and it has a heal at that tier, right?
It does. That is one of the reasons why it's on my list.
So yeah, I don't. And LDP says it doesn't have smoke. That's right. You know, Exeter is kind of the proto British heavy. It was put into the game before Exeter does have torps, and it has relatively large guns compared to Leander. And it has a heal and it has hydros. So I think Exeter. That's why I put Exeter on there. If I was going to play cruiser, I put Marblehead on there. If you're going to play one of the Omahas, Marblehead has better DPM and longer range torps than Omaha, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I put Marblehead on there. But yeah, I don't know. Looking at this list, tier 5 cruisers floating pop cans, and they just demerit and explode when battleships wink at them. So I don't know. It's a hard thing when you have to push in. If you could come up with a comp where you could have a smoked up cruiser that could farm, maybe it would work if you had a really resilient battleship. But yeah, exactly. Not really brawly ships, are they? No, I don't look at that list and go, yeah, shit hits the fan. I sure hope I can get my Yahagi in the mix. That's just
I mean, I looked really hard to find the Grafspay at this tier, and the Exeter was the closest thing I could come up with, right? So Exeter has, I think they're 203s, 203 millimeter guns. It's got the torpedoes, it's got the hull repair. I think that's the closest thing to what we had last time around with tier 6 brawls, where we were using the Grafspay. And the Grafspay was really strong. And of course the acoustics helped too. So that's why Exeter kind of made my cut, was hull repair, because you're going to get slapped, acoustics because you're going to get torped, big guns because you need to be doing brawly things, right? I don't know if I think the Exeter, I mean, the Exeter is not a battleship. It's not going to do battleship things. It's going to do its best with being an Exeter. And so I think it's going to be a strong pick. Kirov made my list because of its incredible guns, but you talked about how they're floating pop cans, and they're only floating pop cans until they stop floating, right? And Kirov is one that can suffer from big hits, either from a heavy cruiser or from a battleship, but it can also dish it up in the meantime. Problem with the Kirov is, if you're playing it safely, where it can live longest and do more damage, it's not going to be as effective in caps and things like that. And so, if I could find a cruiser with smoke, and if the Chungking has smoke, it might be a great choice for getting into cap, getting that smoke puffed, and doing what they can to stay, active, engaged in that battle. And I put Königsberg on here because high DPM, you can stay at range and keep the damage up. And if you're taking shots that, if people are shooting at you, if you're getting potential damage but you're not actually being hit, that's a form of tanking that the Königsberg is actually quite good at. And of course, good acoustics and torpedoes. Again, no heal, so you're not going to be able to recover from any damage. You're gonna have to exercise like a damage avoidance strategy with Königsberg in order to keep that thing on the surface. I skipped Hawkins because I don't really love the British heavies, but it's got a hull repair as well and big guns. I think they're 190s, which is kind of an odd size on Hawkins. We both talked about Furitaka off stream.
Yeah. I do like Furitaka because it's tough. I always feel like that boat's pretty tough. It's a true heavy cruiser at this tier, comparatively, right? And that's kind of like why I like Exeter too. Like, it's a tougher ship. Furitaka's also got pretty potent torpedoes.
Yeah.
And some of the other tech tree ones I might like better. A lot of the tier 5 premium trash. McCoyan and
McCoyan's bad.
And so but I think Hawkins could be okay. I think what you might be looking for in that is you want that
we're losing your audio a little bit there, man. Sorry.
Okay.
What might be looking for? No, that's okay.
I just say if you're looking for something in that cruiser, I think what you might be shooting for is more rapid fire guns than you get with Exeter.
Yes, that is one thing. It's a concession for that ship, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's kind of a concession with Furitaka as well. So some of the ones like Emerald or probably Chungking, I don't know, I haven't looked at its stats, or Marblehead or Omaha, where the guns are going to rotate or rack out shots a little faster, might be better if the cruiser's main role is just to kill a spotted destroyer.
And Emerald was on my list actually at first. I threw it down and I said, let's have this. And I ended up finding that I put too many cruisers on my list. Emerald, I don't actually own it right now, is another problem. But it does have a heal. It's got smaller guns, if I recall correctly. I don't remember if it has acoustics, but we're going to go find out. I think Emerald is decent, and I believe it has improved pen angles. Chat, if you can confirm or deny that, I'd appreciate it, but no worries if you're unable to do so. But the Emerald I thought is a solid one. One that I'm kind of surprised neither of us picked was Emile Bertin. We like those French mid-tier cruisers and even the high-tier ones as well.
We get together, have a few laughs.
Yeah.
Brightblade, thank you for the subscription. Go ahead, Scott.
I like Emile Bertin a lot, but I don't want to play it close.
That's and maybe not in Brawls, right? It's a fun ship in randoms. I just don't know if it converts to Brawls.
One other random tidbit about Hawkins too, like out of the 3 that can heal at this tier, with Exeter and Emerald and Hawkins being really the only 3 cruisers with a heal at this tier, Hawkins actually can heal 50% of its Citadel damage, which the other 2 can't.
Yeah.
Which is good because Citadel gets hit often.
To be fair, when I played through the Hawkins, I think you got to skip that one. I had actually a pretty good time in it, but then I was like, I really don't like what I'm doing, but it's working okay. Nunez 2129, thanks for showing up. I appreciate that you watch the YouTube videos. Thank you, and thank you for the first time chat as well. Lord Mega says Emerald has a heal, but it doesn't matter if your hit points go down to 0. 100% agree. And that's why I pulled it from my list. I said, Emerald's got the heal. It's almost good enough. It does have a smoke as well. So smoke and heal might be something you can use, but you are going to have to focus a lot of your mental energy on staying alive. I agree, Lord Megas. That's a good comment. Okay, so what are we not going to see? We kind of talked about some of these already. You said Kotovsky. I don't think we're going to see Krasny Krim because you can't get its range out to what you used to be able to. I think that boat's kind of not as popular as it once was. I don't really think we're going to see Hawkins. We might see... I don't know. I don't really think somebody's going to bring Hawkins. I shouldn't put that one on the won't see list. But I think it's like Kotovsky. I think it's Krasny Krim. Probably not Geneva. If you've got a Geneva and an Exeter, you wouldn't choose the one that doesn't have a heal, right? Like, it just wouldn't happen. And acoustics, for that matter. I don't know. What do you think we're not going to see? Or Yahagi, maybe you mentioned earlier, too.
Celibus, because it doesn't have torps.
Right. That's a good point.
It doesn't have torps, and it doesn't have the airstrike thing yet. So it's... and it's not as good. Honestly, the Deruder at tier 4 is a better boat than the Celibus is at tier 5. So I don't think you'll see that. I think looking at the rest, I think everybody else has torpedoes at that tier, don't they? Does Kirov have torps?
Kirov has torps for their 4 kilometers. They suck, but...
Yeah, but like, I think most everybody else... I don't... You'll probably see somebody in a Yagi. Like, you'll see somebody in a Krasny Krim. Even with the range nuke on it, if you run an IFHE Krim captain, it's actually pretty potent against tier 5 battleship superstructures, so... I wouldn't want to do it, but if you had one.
Yeah. Yahagi's a weird pick, because that's the one that has, like, the speed boost, and it feels like a destroyer, but it gets citadeled like a cruiser, right? So you got to be careful in that one. It's got long-range torps. They're 12 kilometers. But I feel like it's too frail to survive. I'd much rather be in an Exeter, or honestly, even the Emerald at that point. Meat Pie Man asked about the maps. What maps? We did show those on screen a little bit earlier. I posted a link in chat. If you guys want to click on it, you can see the maps that are available and some more information about Brawl number 7. That's the tier 5 Brawl that's coming up. So no, I think that's probably... I think you've got some good logic there on the lack of torpedoes on Celibus as well. So yeah, I feel like we've kind of covered our cruisers. We can move on to destroyers at this point. Let's bring up our destroyers. Long list of destroyers here. A lot of destroyers on the premium side that are a little harder to get. There's actually 2 versions of Kamikaze, a Fujin and a Gremiyashi, that are no longer available. We'll be talking about those, I'm sure. There's actually pretty good DDs at tier 5. I actually think this is a pretty interesting conversation. So I'm going to throw our picks up on there, and Scott, will have you start off with your discussion here on destroyers.
Yeah, I think we had similar picks.
We did.
leaning in hard. Like, I will play Fujin. Malarkey was talking about owning all of the Kamikazes. I don't have Kamikaze R, so congrats to you, Malarkey. But and I prefer Fujin just because I like the camo. No love for me because I don't have it, so I won't play it. If you have it, knock yourself out. Fujin's my boat of choice for those 3 just because I like the camo the best. It's silly looking. So, yeah, I would play the bejesus out of that. If I needed to play a gunboat, it's Ashi or Hill. If I was going to do a tech tree boat, if I didn't have a bunch of boats that no one can get anymore, haven't been able to get for.
Yeah.
I think I like T-22 a lot. It's pretty powerful for a low tier tech tree destroyer with its hydro, and Nicholas has really good PM. So if you're going to go in and be a gunboat DD, Nicholas is pretty good at that role.
Yeah, and I think there's some value in that. There's an initial surprise period that happens right before the action opens up in a brawl, especially a 3v3 brawl. And then once they know where you are, they kind of know where you are all the time, even if you're not rendered on the map. So a gunboat DD is not a poor choice there. Looking at the list, I don't have a Kamikaze R, or Fujin, so I put Minikaze on there for poor saps like me who didn't get in on the ground floor when that boat was still available. Minikaze is very strong. I think its torpedoes are a little bit slower, and they go 7 kilometers. Are the ones on Kamikaze and Fujin 8s, Skada? They're still
No,
7.
They go 7.
Okay.
Yeah, they
it's
just
the
go
speed.
They just go about 30 knots faster.
Yeah, they're much quicker.
I think Minikaze's actually can reload quicker.
That might be.
I think that that might be a thing. And yeah, Minikaze's can reload in 42 seconds, and Kamikaze Fujin's is 47. But your Minikaze's
like
go
5
57.
seconds is...
Yeah, Minikaze goes 57 knots, and Kamikaze goes 68 knots base, right?
Mhm.
And so, like, I'm sure anybody who has Fujin or Kamikaze, they're probably running 19 plus point captain on it with a bunch of torp boosting skills. So, your reload's faster, and you're ripping torpedoes out, every 40 seconds that are going 74, 75 knots or whatever. It's pretty gnarly at that tier.
Right, absolutely. Nightmark Malarkey, thanks for joining us for a little bit. So yeah, I think the speed on the torps is the difference there, and the reason that speed's important for those of you guys who don't play torpedo boats that much is, that really defines your accuracy. The better aim you are is great, but the better aim you are with faster torps, you're going to be that much more effective at putting damage on the board rather than watching your torpedoes sail by a target because they turned and they had time to react and things like that. So I put Minikaze down even as a stock slower torpedo than Kamikaze and Fujin. Minikaze is a very strong boat. It's very, very capable. If you have at least a 10-point captain, I think you can get a lot of work done with it. T-22 made my list. I actually went and repurchased T-22 because I had sold it way back in the day. 7.5 kilometer torpedoes. It's got an acoustics module, and sensors are king in small ship battles. We know that having acoustics, or at another tier maybe having radar, is a huge deal. Acoustics are a big deal for screening torpedoes for your allies, for creeping around islands safely and doing that kind of stuff. So definitely T-22 is a very valuable ship. I went and ran it. One of its problems is it doesn't have the quarter HE pen that you get on most German ships. It's got 105 millimeter guns that only pen 19 or 20 millimeters of armor rather than what would have been 26 if it had quarter pen, unfortunately. But the lucky thing is you're only going to be shooting at tier 5, so you should be able to pen everything that you need to. But if you're shooting at a battleship with the T-22, make sure you're looking at getting your shells on the superstructure. You're probably not going to pen pretty much anything else. Gremiashi is a fantastic destroyer, incredible gunboat, 6.1 kilometer detect once you've got it max, and 8 kilometer torpedoes that are mid-speed. They're maybe a little slower. They're going to be 60 knots, I think, is the number. So they're not bad. Hill, great gunboat. It's going to get a lot of work done. And Hill is a very capable destroyer, but terrible torpedoes. 3 launchers, 5.5 kilometers, but you're going to be hard-pressed to get yourself into a position where you can do that. Definitely recommend all of the boats that all of us mentioned. I would recommend Nicholas wholeheartedly. Ohotnik didn't make the cut for me, but Ohotnik is almost did. I think it's a good boat, and I think you should maybe consider giving it a try. The guns have a long reload, but the concealment is way lower than it has any right being with the scale of that boat. 5.7 kilometers, and you can put a 21-point captain on it if you have one. Skada, Ohotnik, Scirocco, Acasta, we kind of had talked about some of these boats. Any thoughts on those and why maybe they didn't make the cut for you, other than the fact that you have a Fujin and a Kamikaze?
So I think that you won't see a lot of cruisers because you can take 2 battleships. Right. And on the NA server in randoms for the last few months, whenever you queue into anything, there's 100 battleships and 3 other guys waiting to play. And I
Can-
think that'll
yeah.
stay the same. So I think when we build a division to do this, we'll probably have 2 battleships and we won't take a cruiser. And so I think um, for me, that's why I didn't consider Sirocco or uh, Jaguar or one of those kind of gunboats because I think they excel at tier 5 at shooting other destroyers, and they're actually both really competent at taking out cruisers at that tier, and with their guns.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you can light fires on those battleships, but I don't know if that's going to be of value since you can't smoke in those ships. Gremiashi was a little different, where Gremiashi's guns are just so powerful, and it has decent torpedoes, and it can do, and it because it's overpowered. So I
Yeah.
thought that fit.
Broken for days, right?
One thing I thought about putting on my list just as a what about was Jean Wei. I think if you see a preponderance of 2 battleship groups, that Jean Wei with its deep waters, it could feast because its torps hit the hardest at this tier. They're not super long range, but if you can get those deep waters off into some of these double battleship comps, I think you might have a lot of success with that.
Yeah. Odie says, no, Ohotnik. He missed that part of the discussion. Again, I think Ohotnik's on the table for some people. I don't know if those short torps are going to be what you need. Scotty, you were talking about, the guns are going to put you in a dangerous position. The torpedoes are going to be your better armament for dealing with those 2 battleship comps in a DD. I think you're right. It does have smoke, does have low detect. I think it could be decent. So again, I definitely think someone is going to run in Ohotnik, if only for the laughs, but I think it's a good ship still. And if you're good at Ohotnik, and that's the thing we talk about in here all the time, don't we, Scott? Where, if you're comfortable in a ship, if you're good at a ship, maybe that's the best ship for you, even if it isn't what some couple of nerds on the internet said, right? So
Yeah, nobody's going to
definitely
listen
do
to
your
us
own-
anyway.
Yeah, do your own research. Like, this is literally just us hosting a conversation because we think this is an interesting topic. Definitely, between us and the 93 people watching the stream right now, you 93 people know more about World of Warships than the 2 of us combined because there's 100 of you. I'm rounding up slightly, but I think you get the idea. I think Sirocco is a good boat too, but the overpoweredness of Gremi, Kamikaze, Fujin, kind of pushed me to not choose that one. I already had what is actually 6 different destroyers on my list. So Sirocco's okay if you like that French gunboat style for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're, I don't like Matsuki over Minakaze, but if you're like Matsuki in mode, I don't like Podvoyevsky, but if you like Podvoyevsky, use Podvoyevsky, right? See how it goes for you. Your mileage may vary.
I met somebody on stream the other day. I was like, oh, Podvoyevsky, what a terrible... And they're like, no, it's one of my favorite Russian destroyers. I said, okay, tell me why. And they had some reasons. They liked the guns. They liked the play at that tier. And I said, okay, well, your mileage may vary, as you said, right?
Yeah. To answer Run to the Seas question, at least for me, I like Fujin's camo better than Kamikaze's. I have them both. I can't actually explain why. I've definitely played Fujin a lot more than I have Kamikaze for whatever reason. And when I try to play Kamikaze, I get dumpstered. But if I play Fujin, I am a golden god. So that's the only...
Yeah, what the heck,
So
right?
I'm not trying to be ironic or anything. Whichever one you have, they're identical. Kamikaze R, Kamikaze, Fujin, they're all the same.
Yeah.
Fujin has this weird, like, crazy orange and yellow, like, camo that looks like it has, like, a mouth on the front of it. And I'm really good in that boat, and I take out Kamikaze, and I just get totally dunked on. So that's my logic on preferring Fujin.
I mean, fair, right? Like, there's random nonsense that affects the choices we make in this game, and that's one of them, right? I looked at Visby for this too. Visby's detect isn't good enough with all the ships that are sub 6. I think Visby's great when it comes to armaments, but detect wasn't good enough. So I don't think we're going to see people taking Visby. I don't really think we're going to see a lot of Podvoyskis. Somebody's going to try Nicholas, but I don't know if I think it's going to work that well. Mutsuki does 2-3 torpedo launchers instead of Minakaze's 3-2 torpedo launchers, and has 2 guns instead of, how many guns are on Minakaze? 4. So Mini's just a better boat than Mutsuki all around. I'm sure someone would disagree with that and have good reasons, but for my money, it's going to be Minakaze. So I think you won't see too many Podvoyskis. You'll probably still see Mutsukis, but I don't think you'll see that many Visbys. And then you'll probably see a little bit of most of those others. I don't know about Jaguar, but maybe.
Yeah, and we're talking about Nicholas or Hill too. Like we talk about them for their gunboat kind of short range torpedoes, right? But
Yeah.
that's one thing. At least when I play those in randoms and in the like, in a 3v3 brawl, if you've managed to smoke up and farm in one of those with your guns and the battleship's there and he's getting close enough that it's a concern to you, uh, tier 5 battleships, as long as it's not Oklahoma or Agincourt, you can pop out, or Derflinger, right? You can pop out and rush them. You're probably going to be capable of dodging their forward battery salvo as they try to shoot you, and then you can just whip the bejesus out of them. That is a skill that you'll see DD players with those tier boats use quite a bit, right? So, and that could happen with Podvojeski or Ohotnik as well, but they don't handle. Hill and Nicholas they both handle relatively well for that kind of maneuver.
Yeah,
I like
they
Acosta.
do.
Yeah,
They
I was
do.
gonna say Acosta's come up a couple times in chat. I almost had Acosta on my list.
Me too, actually.
I thought it had hydro and it doesn't. I don't know when that line gets hydro. But I liked Acosta when I played it.
Yeah, I think it gets hydro at Icarus, which is the 6. I'll double check real quick. But I think that is when that happens. And I thought it had hydro too, and it would have absolutely been on my list with hydro. But even without it, some folks really like the single torpedo launch capability of those British destroyers. And I'll tell you, when I played the 5 and the 6, now granted in randoms, not against coordinated teams like we're going to see in Brawls, you would drive up close to a battleship who had slow DPM and wasn't able to do much about it. You would drop anchor, you would pop smoke, and then you would just turn a little bit and put out one torpedo at a time, let him maneuver, put out another torpedo. When you think he's locked in, put out the other few torpedoes, and you would just paste battleships right there. So I think you could still do that with Acosta. It's more powerful if you've got the torpedoes, or excuse me, the acoustics to keep yourself safe. But even without it, I think that's going to be a viable tactic that's going to work for players in the Acosta. So I do think we'll probably still see them. Tango Fan says, what about 2 DD divisions? Maybe. I think 2 battleships are going to be more popular, but because I think the hit point hit you take by not bringing a second battleship or cruiser and choosing a DD instead would be tough to overcome. But if you've got a group that's got 2 good destroyer players and you can really get in there and crisscross some torpedoes, I think it could very well work. I don't know, Scott, what do you think about 2 DD divisions?
Yeah, I like the idea of 2 DD divisions. I also like the idea of if you had something like Fujin or whatever is your 1DD that's super low detect and relatively fast, not taking a battleship and taking 2 smoke cruisers and having those 2 cruisers smoke up and farm while that DD
is out there spotting.
While that DD is spotting and torping aggressively. I think that could be I could see that being like the kind of division that like your high skill groups take. Where they're like, we're not going to take a slow battleship because what's the point? We'll take, whatever.
We'll take 2 Chung Kings and
whatever, 2 Chung Kings with deep
else.
water torpedoes and these HE guns that are 150s, and then we'll take a kamikaze spotting force that's reeking torpedoes.
Yeah.
And as soon as that DD spots the other DD, those 2 Chung Kings are going to annihilate it. I think that actually could end up being like you see with your real badass groups.
Yeah, I think that is a absolute possibility for sure. So I think we're gonna wind up seeing some clever comps. I don't think those will be common. I think you're right that that's going to be something that high skill players are going to uncork because they're going to know they can get away with it. And if you can execute at that level, I think that could be really, really interesting. Non-offensive nickname says it's about RNG and matchmaking. I think that's a big part of a lot of aspects of this game, and that's for sure. So definitely something that you're going to see. Those 2 Chung Kings and a Fujin against something that doesn't have battleships or cruisers. Maybe it's 1 battleship and 2 DDs. Those guys might have a hard time with their deep waters if they only have 1 target they can really work on, unless they're able to actually get a hold of that target with those deep waters and get the work done. So could be an interesting matchup from time to time. With the carrier variable out, it makes the possible combinations a lot smaller. So I guess we'll see kind of what we wind up seeing. Great comments, guys, from chat. Thank you for that. Wrecking Havoc says aggressive Paolo Emilio style. Yeah, maybe. We'll see. I don't know if there's anything that's really it's got enough wheels to do that. It's fast enough to do that. We're all about it, though. So, yeah, I think that's probably exhausted our discussion on Tier 5 destroyers. We're going to bounce over and talk about Brawl 8, which involves Tier 7 ships, and that's kind of confusing. So at Tier 7, we'll start with battleships as well. Lots of premium battleships at Tier 7. Look at how long that list of premiums is compared to the list of tech trees. And that can often be true, but it's particularly true at these mid-upper tiers, Tier 7 and Tier 8. And so we're seeing tons and tons of choices for battleships there. Let me grab the Tier 7 list over here. For me, I'll go first on this one. I threw Prinz Heinrich in there because everybody's in love with the new German battleships. And honestly, I'm in love with the Prinz Heinrich as a ship, dude. This thing is fantastic. It's got acoustics that are pretty long range. It's got great secondaries that can reach out and touch somebody. It's got 12-kilometer torpedoes, I think, and the mains don't do too bad either. It's a little bit lower than, not quite as tanky as some of the other ships, but I still think it's tanky enough to do the job in here. And with that combination of tools, it's got a lot of ways to put hatred out into the world, put some ammo out there, and some ways to stay safe with the acoustics, which I find very powerful. I put Sign Up on here because we've seen Sign Up show up in pretty much everything competitive that's about Tier 7. Sign Up is a strong tech tree battleship. It's got a great forward armament, or a main battery armament, excuse me, and it seems to pen just about anything regardless of angle because of Russian bias. I put Yukon on here. I should have put a question mark after it like I did for Skada, because you kind of sent those along with question marks as well. Yukon's not really a pushy battleship, but it's got that long heel. And I think the HE that Yukon uses primarily is going to be really great against all the platforms you're going to see out there. It's going to be good against other battleships. It's going to be good against destroyers. You're never going to have the wrong shells loaded, unless maybe you did switch for AP for a shot and then a DD popped up in front of you. So I think Yukon is going to be really ready to shoot just about anybody. But I think it's not going to be quite as aggressive on the damage dealing as it could be. But that super heal that it does bring to the table is going to keep it in the game as long as possible. And I put California in here because if you got some good spotters, the California can really dish it up at range. I wouldn't stay at long range like I would in a normal random battle with California, but maybe a little bit longer than you would with a Prinz Heinrich, where you're going to get in there for secondaries and torpedoes. And if you got good spotters and you can point and click on things and make sure they're dead, California is going to serve you well. And I think that's maybe a controversial pick. Skada, thoughts either on my picks, or if you want to jump into yours first and then just talk about ships in general, that's fine too.
Yeah, I'll just go through mine real quick.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Heinrich's going to be the ship that everybody uses for
without question, right? Like, it's going to be Heinrich, right?
It'd be great. I picked Huga, not because I'm a huge fan of it, but because it's reload booster, get a lot of damage out there real quick for a battleship. So it has the, it's a Fuso, but you can pop that damage booster or the reload booster, and you can get more shells down target. I put Yukon and Nelson with that question mark, right? Because I was kind of like, I don't know what else. I honestly, I think it doesn't matter. He's just going to play Prinz Heinrich. So I was like, what else would you use? So I thought, well, Yukon for the reasons kind of that you said. Yukon is not as much of a fire bat. It does have improved AP pen. So it is worth riding over. But the reload's not anything special. It's on because it has the mega heal, which I was kind of wondering if just with this being the 2v2 brawl and only having one battleship, in my head I put Yukon and Nelson on there just because of hit points, because you can bring more hit points to the fight. Like in that last match you saw we played before this, I played Yukon. I was like the only guy who lived at the end. It was a bad loss, but I got a dreadnought without trying, because if you manage those mega heals, that's super easy to do. Nelson's the same way. In fact, Nelson has better punching power just because it has the bigger guns and they're all forward. So if you keep bow in, that might be good. And Nelson AP overmatches a lot of stuff at Tier 7, and its HE is really strong. So that's why I put it on there. Nelson's kind of a slow tub. So as far as your picks, Sign Up. This is a strong battleship. I think California. I like California, but I don't know that I want California as my only battleship in a 2v2.
Yeah, and I think the 2v2 comment there does kind of make one want to reconsider the California pick, right? I mean, with Heinrich available, it's going to be so hard to not choose it in a 2v2 in particular. Big Daddy points out Nelson's AP is pretty good. And if you angle it in reverse, it's pretty powerful. Yeah, and we've seen Nelson show up in ranked battles and all of that stuff for sure. So I think Nelson, people are going to crack it out and bring it up. Number 9 says, no love for Sharny. I like Scharnhorst, but Heinrich has all the tricks Scharnhorst has plus acoustics. I really, really like Scharnhorst, and if they would put an acoustics module on it, I would like it even more. But Heinrich's secondaries are longer, the mains are bigger, they don't reload quite as fast. That's something that's still in Scharnhorst's camp. But no acoustics and shorter range torpedoes. It makes it tough to choose it over Heinrich, doesn't it?
Well, a week or two ago, I don't remember if we were on stream or not, but I played
Scharnhorst.
and I asked
You
myself.
said you played Scharnhorst. Sorry, we lost you there for a second.
I say a couple weeks ago we were playing, and I don't remember if we were streaming or not, but I was playing Scharnhorst meta, the new German battleship line, and I said, why would you play this anymore over the Tech Tree Prinz Heinrich? I like Scharnhorst. I like the reload. I think the guns are usable, but everything that I liked about Scharnhorst, I think that Prinz Heinrich is more efficient at the secondaries reach for secondary damage because bigger caliber, the fast reload Damacon, the longer range torpedoes, hydros, equal this maneuverability. It's probably not as well armored, but I think they probably have similar hit points without, I'm not going to go look, but it's similar. And I just, I feel like Scharnhorst kind of gets the short end of the stick at this point on that. And, for the same reason, I think when I originally was looking at the list, I had Scharnhorst, I actually had Gneisenau. And I know you don't like Gneisenau because the reload, but there's something, Gneisenau at least has the 380s. If you're going to play those two, and Gneisenau has, they both have the torps, right? Like they both have, but they're 6 km torps. Like, I don't know. But that's kind of why, with Scharnhorst, and I don't think Scharnhorst has more barrels than Prinz Heinrich, does it? Doesn't Prinz Heinrich have 4 turrets with 2 barrels each?
Heinrich has 3 barrels with 2 or 3 turrets with 2 barrels each. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Gneisenau has 6 guns. Heinrich has. Let me find it. You might find it faster than me for some reason. Where is this?
Yeah. Heinrich might have like 8 barrels. I thought I had 4, and Scharnhorst has 9 barrels, but the guns on Heinrich are larger.
Right. I can't find my Heinrich. This is making me very alarmed. Did I sell that?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, Heinrich's 4x2 380. So it has the 380s similar to Gneisenau.
But 2 more of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And Scharnhorst does have 9 barrels of 283, which is good if you're fighting. It's great for fighting cruisers because you're going to get less overpins. But
I don't know. I like Scharnhorst handling. I've had that boat for a long time, like years, right? And I like the way it handles. I like the way that it drives around like a battle cruiser. I like the way that Citadel's cruisers without overpenning them. But man, I liked all of those things more in Heinrich. Now Heinrich doesn't reload as quickly, and it might overpen a cruiser, but whereas Scharnhorst might not with the same shot. But yeah, I've had a good time with them. We'll see how it goes. Sylphie says Heinrich's guns are way more accurate too. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'll trust you for the sake of this discussion. I think that's probably true. And Meat Pie Man says the Sharnies guns are good against cruisers, but you really won't be fighting a lot of cruisers. That's true. I mean, if we go in there and we're wrong, it's 3 cruiser meta all day, or 2 cruiser and something else meta all day long. I'd be very surprised. I think Meat Pie Man's got a point. So that's kind of what we've got there. What are we not going to see? I would like for us to see Florida, but I don't think people are going to play Florida. I think people probably are not going to play California for some of the reasons you pointed out earlier, Scott. If it's your only battleship in a two-ship division, it's probably not the multi-purpose tool that you want it to be. Gosh, I don't know. What else do you think?
Florida's 25 millimeter bows make it damn near useless in this.
Right.
Its bow. Pensacola's got a tougher bow than, unfortunately. So I wouldn't want to play Florida, and that's where I figure I'm going to be bow in trying to fight in a brawl mode. You sure as hell shouldn't see a Poltava. In fact, I don't recommend seeing Poltavas in random. So I don't think you're going to see a Poltava in this mode.
Anti-Poltava sentiment
just
coming from this guy.
Giant bow that you can just farm. I think you'll see Colorados because ships like it are evergreen.
Yeah.
I think you'll see Lions. Lion has so many guns and it's got really good DPM, so people should use Lion. I think you'll see Caracciolo because it's got nice turret traverse. Sign up, obviously. Nagato because its guns hit really hard. I think you'll see. I like Ashitaka. Ashitaka's pretty fast. It doesn't have the greatest armor, but it's got a lot of guns.
Yeah.
But in 2v2, I just have a hard time saying you're going to see anything other than Prinz Heinrich.
Yeah, Duke of York has hydros. That's an important thing to bring up, right? If you've only got 2 ships, having sensors to keep them alive is valuable. And Duke was almost on my list. I moved ships back and forth on my recommend, don't recommend list a lot. And Duke was on there for a bit. But I ended up pulling it and going with the Yukon discussion instead. I thought that might be more interesting for more folks. But I think it's... yeah, I ended up pushing it off, but I think it could be a strong boat. Its range isn't really, really long, but it's not as bad as you'd think. And it's a brawl, so we're going to tend to be pretty close to our targets as the way that we go, or as the way these battles tend to go. Colorado, I think you'll see it's got big guns, and they're reasonably accurate, and people, like you say, they're evergreen. People play Colorado. It's going to get played, especially folks who might not have the big stable of premiums to play. They're going to crack out of Colorado, and I think it's a very serviceable ship. You'll do just fine with it, for sure. Ice Cube says double Prinz so you can cover the entire map in secondary range. Yes, but no, and the reason no is no more than 1 battleship per team. It's unfortunately not going to be an option you could go with. A double battle, 2v2 would be an interesting fight, but Wargaming has not made that part of the 8th Brawl. They want to have a little diversity in there in terms of ships, so we won't see double Prinzes, but that could be interesting. Namber points out Duke of York can easily be citadeled by Synop. I think that's probably true. I think Synop's going to have a good time citadeling most of these ships at a wide variety of angles. So that's going to be a ship to watch out for. Skada mentioned Lion a second ago, but I'll bring it up again. He said, it's got a lot of guns and it's got a good amount of DPM as a result of that. It's 16 guns on the Lion. If you're not familiar with the Lion, you might choose to become so. It's a good ship. I really enjoy that. It's one of my favorite French battleships, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but 16 guns, 340 millimeters, and they do a pretty good job of starting fires as well as that. Oh, no reason to apologize. Not offensive nickname. It's worth the highlighting Lion, and I was gonna, or Leon, and I was gonna bring it up as well just to kind of expand a little bit on Scada's comment. So I'm glad you mentioned it.
It's a deceptively fast ship too. It doesn't look like it would be, and I don't think anything would have been that fast that's shaped the way it is. But yeah, that ship's it's like goes 30 something knots, doesn't it? It's got a lot of guns.
Mine says it goes 27, but I don't have like a fully kitted out one. But that's pretty quick, right?
Yeah, and it's that ship's pretty good. I don't know if I want to brawl in it, but it's not the work it could take.
Yeah. I think you could do good work with Lion, but with just 2 ships, again, how could you possibly not pick Prinz Heinrich right now? I'm gonna have a really hard time not choosing it as the one battleship that's out there. Interesting question is, what are you gonna pair it with? And as we walk onto our cruiser discussion, I think that's gonna come up pretty apparently. So let's go ahead and hit cruisers here. So that's what we've got as far as the list of ships. Miyoko, Helena, New York. You can read them all there on the screen. And let's pull up this. Sylphie says we're gonna see Belfast. I think so too. Skada also thinks so. Skada, why don't you run through your list first? I went first last time, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Picked Fiji because Fiji's probably the best tech tree at 7. Belfast because Belfast is funny. Like Belfast has this historical connotation of being the power ship that's out of the game. It isn't as powerful as it used to be. There's just so much other stuff that exists now that I think creeps it. Belfast is great if you can smoke up and farm with that HE, but in a 2-2, like we talked about earlier, if the cruiser smokes up and hides that battleship, boy, like a Belfast Nelson combo where you have the super heal, maybe you could make that work. Plus Belfast doesn't have torps, but having radar in this 2v2 is going to be of value. I put Weimar on there because I like Weimar's gun DPM and I like the way it plays. I've just had fun with it lately. I think in these shorter range engagements, it's going to be a murder boat. I think it'll do well. And I put Boise and the Wave of the Julio on there because they both have mega heat. They both are just, they have that zombie heal like those British battleships. They have really good gun DPM. It's shorter range, but in this, the maps are going to be small. That really won't matter. And so, you know, the 152s on those are going to do a good job of burning battleships and fighting other cruisers. And again, they have that mega heal. And it was like, you know, again, it was kind of my logic on the other one. I was like, well, it may not be a boat I want to play, but it brings in this extra amount of hit points as long as I don't get dumpstered and I can use the heals.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we're looking, as we paw through the bucket of ships to go, okay, what's down here at the bottom that maybe makes a lot of sense. Oh, by the way, I did spell Weimar incorrectly. It's AR at the end. So apologies to anybody from the Weimar Republic region. If that's home for you, I apologize. Hey, Jimbo, welcome to the stream. I too put Fiji down. Fiji is incredibly strong. Its guns are good. It's got a heal. It's got smoke. It's got acoustics. And it was good enough that just a few months ago, they actually nerfed its reload to 8 seconds from 7.5, I think. Same with Leander. Both those ships got nerfed because of their capability. And when we see Wargaming adjusting a ship that's as old as Fiji or Leander, that's like a very justified nerf. And I still think the Fiji's powerful with that 8-second reload that it has now. So I think you'll be able to do a lot of work with Fiji. Skada's comments about Belfast smoking up and hanging your battleship out there to dry by being the damage sponge for everything is true, and that's going to be a problem for Fiji as well. If Fiji utilizes that smoke, they'd better have a plan to get the job they're trying to get done, which is either staying alive or killing something, and then get out of that smoke and try to support the battleship. And that can be a dangerous proposition. I actually don't even know if it's a good idea, but it's a thing that you need to be thinking about, is regulating how much exposure to damage you're putting your other ship at. By going into your smoke. And that's true for destroyers as well. We'll talk about that when we get down there. I did put Zara in here. I like Zara's smoke for this. Zara can hit pretty hard with its 200 millimeter guns, 203s, I think, and smoke as well, or sap as well. And then Zara can use a smoke, and Zara's smoke is like a temporary, I got something to do real quick smoke, right? You're not committing or maybe allowing yourself to commit to a 2 minutes in cloud so no one can see me envelope of safety. You're going to do some smoking while you do a game return. You're going to do some smoking while you get some extra damage. And then after a little bit, that smoke's going to go away. You're going to be back re-engaged in the fight, supporting your other ship, where you can get some of that potential damage as well. Namber says, Belfast has smoke radar hydro. That's why it's on the list. I think you're going to see them. I think it's still strong. And we talk all the time about how valuable sensors are. We've already talked about it tonight. And Belfast brings them all, right? We've got radar, we've got acoustics. We lose torpedoes with the Belfast, which you do have in Zara, you do have in Fiji. But you get a double dose of sensors with the smoke. So I think Belfast can still be used intelligently. I think, especially with island play, we're going to see a lot of good Belfast play. Same is going to be true with Fiji. Johnny, thanks for the follow. Welcome to the stream here. And then I threw a Abruzzi on there. And Abruzzi's a ship that literally nobody has ever thought about, I think. You guys might be hearing about it for the first time. Abruzzi is out there because it's got a hull repair and it's got acoustics, which are two of the things that I think are going to be critical to this two-player version. The hull repair is not huge. It's only 162 hit points per second, but it does last for a full 28. The acoustics here are, they're just 3-4s. So 3 kilometer detection of torpedoes, 4 kilometer detection of ships. So I think those are going to help keep you safe. You're going to be able to get some damage done. There are only 152s on that one. It does not have sap. Ice Cube is pointing out, and that is true. It's 152 millimeter mains on there, and you get 10 of those, it looks like, which I think are going to be fair for doing some of the work that you need to get done. 7.5 second reload, which is a little bit faster probably than some, but not too fast. Johnny asks, has the list of ships not allowed been released yet? I don't think there are going to be any bans for this, or if there are any, they have not yet been announced, Johnny. So right now we're looking at all ships being available. And with the short duration of a brawl, they only last a week, I'm expecting that we won't see any bans during this event. But I have been wrong many times before, and this could be my very next example of that. I don't know, man. Scott, I'm curious about your reaction to my Abruzzi pick. What do you think? Is that crazy? Is it could it work?
I like Abruzzi, and the fact that it has a heal, I think, makes it of value. It has relatively decent range at the tier. I like playing Abruzzi in randoms. It's got bog slow torpedoes, but it's got good gun velocity. It's not hard to play, but I think it could work. I think, Indianapolis, I know you've got it on your picks because of the radar.
Oh, I didn't even talk about it, but yeah. Also the range,
Oh, yeah,
16.9
yeah.
kilometers with 203s. But yeah, the
Yeah,
radar.
and I think if you're slugging it out with other cruisers and battleships, then that's okay. But I like looking at like something like New Orleans or Indianapolis, at least Indianapolis radar, but the rate of fire I think might be kind of a bummer.
Yeah. This list changed multiple times. I had Indianapolis on there, and then I switched it to Helena, and then I put it back to Indianapolis, and I put it back to Helena. And I ended up leaving it, excuse me, I ended up leaving it here for the range because it's, I think, almost 17 kilometers, which is very high for a U.S. cruiser. And then, of course, Indianapolis has good AP, right? So the good US AP with a decent range and a radar. Now, those two things don't jive, right? Long range and short range radar. But I think Indianapolis is interesting. I actually think it's probably too frail. And if I were really getting serious about this list, I'd probably nix it from the list and put like Boise and Nueva de Julio on there like you did. I think those are probably stronger picks with that super heal and with the rate of fire that you're going to have. But Indy can delete, big chunks of a cruiser, maybe not the whole cruiser, but big chunks of a cruiser from range. And people often forget that it doesn't have 14.5 kilometer guns, that it has 16.9, I think, kilometer guns. But yeah, I'd skip that one. Thanks for calling it back. I got a couple of questions here. Tango Fan says, does the smoke even help in brawls with gun bloom? I think the ranges are long enough. In the tier 6 brawl, we were able to use smoke to effect for most of the ships that had it. So I think that's still going to be okay. The ranges are close, but they're not impossibly close. And then Tango says, would we even want to bring a cruiser instead of a battleship and a DD? And I think this is a really, really insightful question. Cruisers are going to be vulnerable to the enemy battleship for sure. If you can dance really well and keep range and still get shots on the battleship, I think you can do a lot of potential damage soaking. That's tanking, right? We don't think of potential damage as tanking, but it really is. It's a form of taking the other player invested in action, they invested a reload in shooting at you, and if it came to nothing, you've effectively tanked that damage. So cruisers are going to be tough, man. I think it's going to be tempting to take a destroyer in a battleship, but if the destroyer is always invisible, it's going to make that battleship vulnerable to being the only target that could be shootable. Skada, what do you think about cruisers and their viability in a two-ship comp at all?
I think, we talked about taking them because you've got more hit points than in a destroyer. So if you go up against a team that has a destroyer and you have a cruiser that can see it, Belfast or at least something that has hydros, so you can, if you have to push a smoke to chase a destroyer, you can do that. You can see torps coming. I think that's key. I'd really be hell-bent on trying to take a cruiser that didn't have any sensors. I think that would be painful. I might be interested, like some of the randoms that we didn't talk about. I think a lot of the stuff I'd want to have torpedoes just for the option. But like Endrocht is kind of interesting. Endrocht I don't think I'd want to use, but Endrocht does have the airstrike at this tier.
That's true, doesn't it?
Didn't. And and that stupid airstrike might be kind of cheesy fun, but I'm kind of a fan of that. I don't know how Chumfon will play yet, but if it plays like the Rahmat, so Chumfon's in Atlanta. I think everybody knows that. It's straight up in Atlanta in a tech tree with HE and AP, but it's going to have deep water torps and smoke. And actually, it's not really in Atlanta. It's more of a Flint because it doesn't have as many turrets as Atlanta. It has the same turret layout as Flint for better AA.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a, it's straight up because Atlanta has those hip turrets that Flint doesn't have, and Chumfon doesn't have those either. So it's really a Flint that you get in the tech tree. But I think that might be interesting just because of that, because it's going to have low smoke bloom because it's smaller guns. But the deep water torps, at least if you don't fight DDs, those are going to hit well, and they're sneaky torpedoes. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and if
I like it.
Oh, go ahead.
I just say I like Algery, but I don't know if I like it in this kind of play. I wouldn't play Surrey. York, I wouldn't take over Weimar. I know we both like Shores, but I don't know if I want Shores in this kind of setup.
I'm worried Shores is a slow burn and this is a fast battle, right? So, and that's the only reason Shores / Lazo didn't get on my list. I love those boats in randoms. With only 2 ships in the world, that's a tough pick, I think.
Yeah, and question from chat: no, there aren't any tier 7 BBs with radar, at least not yet.
Yeah, I couldn't come up with one in my mental scan here as well. Ice Cube,
now.
Yeah, yeah. Ice Cube says, similar to Tango Fan's question, is there enough map to kite and dodge in a cruiser? I think there's enough map there, but you're going to be motivated to be in the caps. So, you could do some of that Lazo running around, kiting, dodging, or those longer range, not torpedoes, longer range cruiser play antics. But I think the caps are going to motivate you to be close to the action. And, I'm going to pull up those maps again real quick. Let me just hide these and we'll put those up. If we look at these, there's a lot of these maps that are overlapping. Let me make sure this is rotating here. No? It's going to do it weird, isn't it?
Yeah, when you don't go in the caps, you lose these very fast. So somebody asked earlier about how fast these matches. If you don't contest caps, they go very quick. The points just roll. That's so playing like a Lazo or playing like a Shores and leaving it up to the other guy to be caps is probably not realistic. You really both kind of have to probably saddle up and get in there.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, I mean, every one of these maps as they roll by, there's overlapping caps, right? And there's such competition for these caps. This one is going to be a real pain. Look at all those islands. That's going to be tough. Now, these are the maps for the 7th Brawl. They officially have not released the maps for the 8th Brawl, but I would not be surprised if they were similar to these, right? So I want to be clear about that. They have not released the maps for the 2 ship compilations or compositions. These are the ones that we're going to see for the tier 5s, but these don't look dissimilar from what we saw at tier 6. So I'm expecting pretty similar loadouts or map options when we get to the.
Yeah, I'm glad they 86 that Epicenter Two Brothers too, because that one was kind of a.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a couple of times. The tension was there, but man, all those matches went to like 15, 18 minutes, and it was just a sudden explosive thing where somebody twitched at the last second. And it just went crazy. Okay, let me hide those again. We'll bounce back out here. We were looking at cruisers. I think the Miyokos are interesting picks, but I don't think they're going to be popular. I don't think the range is that good. The HE Alphas on them is pretty strong. They do come with acoustics, so that's your Miyokos and your Dragons of all flavors. I just don't know that they'll be popular. You'll see 1 or 2 or some number out there because people have them, so they'll play them. Atlanta is a possible pick too. Neither of us put down Atlanta. I think you might have mentioned it just a second ago, but or maybe when we were talking about Chumfon. But it's bringing sensors to the table, right? And I think that's going to be a possibility. If the torpedoes on the Rahmat are any indication of what the torpedoes on the Chumfon are going to be, they're pretty quick. They're mid 60s on speed, and they're going to be able to do that deep water torpedo hits like you mentioned. So, I think there's some good stuff here. A Gorizia is another ship that I was kind of looking at as well. I think Gorizia has really good acoustics, but I want to say it doesn't have a hull repair, and that is true. It has smoke and acoustics, whereas a Brutzi has hull repair and acoustics, but does not have smoke. So kind of if you think that smoke's worth more than the hull repair, you could swap that out and go with the Gorizia, which I think also has larger guns. It's got 203s. Not sure it's going to be there. Sylphie points out the whole reason I brought it up, but forgot, no torpedoes on Gorizia. Gunboat only. So if you're a torpedo fan, you're not going to enjoy Gorizia. And yeah, points out SAP is available as well. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just say Chumfon's got it's that Atlanta configuration or that.
Yeah. Okay. So those are going to be decent, and if they're 65 knots or more, you could do some work there. And remember, guys, right now, if anybody has a 21-point Pan Asian captain, if the Pan Asian cruiser event is going on, for this, you'd be able to put a really good captain on there, build a really good spec, because the ships are acting as if they're special ships, right? So you can do the captain movement around as well. Non-offensive, thank you. That's very kind words. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So it's the 4th week of the mission chain that you can get Chumfon.
So yeah, I think there's a healthy, there's at least a reasonable chance that you might be able to scoop up that ship by then.
Yeah, like I was saying, it's available the 4th, right? So if you can just look at a
count it out,
right?
I guess, couldn't we?
Week 2 is next Monday. Week 3 is the 4, and that might be coincide with that.
It actually it looks good. I'm sure that's not on accident, right? They want people to get these boats out there. Same thing with Agincourt being available for sale right before the tier 5 one, right?
Now, it may not be, I mean, it might be a good damage deal, but it doesn't have any sensors, right? So we
Right.
talked about that a little bit,
Right.
and we'll go to the DDs soon, but, you know,
Yeah.
that would, you know, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm really curious what the comps are going to be, guys. It's going to be a battleship and something. And I think right now in my head, I've got arguments to take both. We've talked about a bunch of these cruisers. Skada just mentioned we're going to roll into the DDs, and we are. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to hide all of this stuff. We'll bring up our list of destroyers. Not as many premium destroyers on this list as we had with battleships and cruisers before, but still some ships to choose from. Quite a few here. We've got a couple that have sensors and others that have some interesting things. I'll throw our picks up here. I was looking at this and I came up with a whole Nipsey Russell of destroyers, and Skada came up with Haida ? I'll take it away and then we'll throw it to you, man. Shiratsuyu is one of both of our favorite tech tree destroyers in this game. We really like Shira. It's got a torpedo reload booster if you're brave enough to take it, and if there's no radars out there and the enemy, you know, isn't going to outspot you too easily in a Shiratsuyu, you could use that reload booster to devastating effect, putting 16 torpedoes in the water 8 seconds apart, right? First 8-second wait, the second 8. There's also Z39. We found Z39 to be really popular in ranked battles when we had the tier 7 ranked season recently. It's got 150 millimeter guns, it's got decent torpedoes, and it's got acoustics. So we're thinking that, or we thought then, and we were proven right, that Z39 was going to be popular in that mode, and I think you'll see it in this mode as well when people choose to take destroyers. I put Haida/Jervis in here. Haida being, of course, a premium Commonwealth ship. Jervis having some of those British sensibilities as well, those Commonwealth/British sensibilities as well. I think those are both reasonable boats, decent DPM on both of them. I can't remember the specific difference right now as I'm thinking about this with Jervis. I think it has 2 torpedo launchers, whereas Haida only has 1. But they both do come with acoustics, smokes, and things of that nature. So I think Jervis might be a little down on guns or something. I can't remember the difference. If chat knows, pipe up and let us know. And I always put Leningrad on anything where there's tier 7 competitive destroyer play. Leningrad isn't for everyone, I'm going to tell you right now. But for a run and gun ship, you can do some of that potential damage tanking. You can get fires, you can burn stuff down. You can cause people more distress than they're actually under. And battleship captains can be freaked out by a Leningrad because they can get spammed out, they can get flamed out, they can get shot at, but we're really not doing that much damage in the Leningrad to a battleship. To a cruiser, you're in a lot more danger, and so it'll cause battleship captains sometimes to make mistakes because they think they're in more danger than they really are from a Leningrad. Psychological warfare is not the best way to play World of Warships. The best way is to do damage and take caps, but Leningrad's got 8-kilometer torps, and it's got long smokes as well. I love the Leningrad personally. It's not, like I say, it's not for everybody. As Sylphie says, I have a Leningrad, and I'm not going to lie, I'm not a huge fan. Understood. I totally get it, right? Skada, you were at a loss for coming up with ships on this. You said, I don't know, Haida. Talk me through your process there as you're coming up with this.
I don't like really any of the premium destroyers at tier 7. In fact, nobody from Wargaming is watching, but if they were, come on, guys. Let's put something out interesting at
Come
tier
on,
7.
Wargaming. Give me some good tier
no.
7 DDs.
You know,
Come
you
on.
took Z39 out of the game. Blizka and Haida are both really old, kind of whatever. Leningrad's a certain thing. Sims is really old. Like,
Sims is ancient.
So, like, I don't know. I think Haida and Z39 were ones that we used a lot in tier 7 rank because of the sensors and the gun DPM. And Z39 is not exactly was setting the world on fire with its guns, but you know, as far as the tech tree destroyers, you mentioned Shira. Obviously, we both really big fans of Shira. I wouldn't want to use Mahan because of the detectability. I wouldn't want to use Minsk because it's trash. I actually was
real good.
I actually was pretty good in Liebricht Moss, but I don't know that I would want to use it. Z31 is horrible. Don't do that.
Z31 is a mistake. Yeah. I do not like that mode.
Yeah, I like Jervis. I don't like Vakalin. That almost made me quit that long.
Yeah. Yeah,
I do
that.
like Gajamata, and somebody in chat mentioned Gajamata. Gajamata guns are great. They have really fun gun angles. It's got those nice long Pan-Asian smokes. It's got deep water torps. It might be interesting. Like I feel like if you're playing 2v2 and you're up against a comp that has a cruiser and a battleship, cool, you can torp everybody. If it's a DD in a battleship, you can win a lot of gunfights with the Gajamata. It's got those, Gajamata is it's a UK DD. I don't remember which one it is. It might be a Jervis. I can't remember.
It's not too different from Jervis in terms of gun armament. So,
but I like the way that boat played. Skana at least has a heel, but and I joked with you last night that if we were doing, okay, Scotty, you've got to play destroyer, I would ready up in Flint. I would ready. I was just like, this is close enough. I've got smoke. I've got torps. I've got rat-attack guns. I've got low hit points. So I'd probably just ready up in Flint or that Chun Pon or something like that. I just don't want to play destroyer. As much as I want to play destroyer in the 3v3, I don't want to play destroyer in the 2v2.
Yeah, I think in the 2v2 there's a lot of pressure on the destroyer, and I think I can't decide if I think cruisers or destroyers are going to be harder to play well in brawls than the other, right? I really don't know, because if you're a destroyer, you have to be getting enough attention so that they're not just burning down your battleship, and you also have to be sneaky enough that you can get capped, and there's a lot of work for a destroyer. Your joke about Flint last night, I think I responded, Flint is the Buddy the Elf, the Will Ferrell character from Elf of destroyers. He's a little too big, but he's got smoke and he's got torpedoes and small guns. He seems like an elf, but he's not an elf, but I think something like that would be a really solid choice, and I don't know. We didn't talk a ton about Flint on the last display here, the last slide, but I think it's probably a worthwhile pick.
Yeah, Flint has good hydros, and it has like Benson torps. There's so many things.
9.2 kilometer
Benson torps,
Benson
right?
torps,
And those torps hit like a truck,
They're
and
good.
it's got those crazy long American smokes. The problem is if you take a ship like that, or you take a gunboat destroyer, plan is to sit and park in a cap and smoke and rat-a-tat-tat. I feel like you have to have the other guy be in a just so he can.
He has to be in a what?
In a Yukon or a Nelson, then just because
to heal back, yeah.
Yeah, because I just feel like you're really hanging that battleship out to dry, unless you can just do so much alpha damage against them that you get to a 1v2 situation, right? So the kind of DDs that I would want to play if I really had to would be like Shira or Udachi, and Udachi's just a premium Shira.
Right.
But then what if the other team has a gunboat DD? You don't want to fight a gunboat. You don't want to fight a Haida in a Shira.
No,
that's
you do
a bad
not.
idea, Jeans,
no,
right?
you do not.
So that's why I was like Haida, because it's good. It's good at what it is. You can open water gunboat in it, or you can do the creepy smoke, and it doesn't have a ton of torpedoes, but they don't suck. And yeah, it's kind of like, well, if I had to do this,
right. Yeah, I think Haida is reliable. It's got very good DPM. Its guns are really strong. It's got acoustics. It's got that creeping smoke. And the creeping smoke is a really great kind of smoke because you can walk out of it as fast as you need to back up your buddy. Whoever's running that battleship for you. I think one weird thing that I haven't really considered until some of our discussion earlier tonight was I was thinking that there might be 2 destroyer comps that are very successful. If you're out there, somebody brings their Prinz Heinrich and they bring let's say it's a Flint, and you're out there in 2 Shiratsuis putting out 32 torpedoes every minute and a half, that could be really, really interesting. And a lot of times when I say, ooh, Wargaming's doing something weird, I think it could be very interesting. It winds up sucking, right? It winds up being just a terrible mode that's not any fun and nobody enjoys it. But I think it could be interesting, and we'll see if that comes back to bite us when this comes out. But a 2DD comp could be interesting too.
That's the other reason I don't want to be in a torp boat for this, because the battleship you're going to see all the time
is going to have acoustics, right? Yeah. They're going to be out there. They're going to be running their hydros and being like, "Das ist torpedoes coming for us."
God help you if he spots you and locks the secondary.
Right. Don't be within 9.5. Right. Just don't do it.
I don't know. Yeah.
It's going to be rough. I will do it. We will run DDs together, I'm sure, and I will be like,
we can.
DDs.
That's the beauty. That's the beauty of these modes, folks. I'm really self-conscious about my win rate at this point. So when we play these kind of modes,
Yeah.
it doesn't affect your stats on WoW's numbers because the API doesn't know about these things, right? So we can screw around and do whatever we want. We can screw around and do whatever we want. Asymptomatic battles, whatever it is.
Asymptomatic battles.
Yeah,
Thank you
like
for
that's
that.
all fun and games. So relief
Yeah.
in that regard.
Sylphie earlier commented, I wanted to get back to this, said, I'm going with Akatsuki. I think, yeah, some of the torpedo focused boats, a cat being one, is going to be fine. Shiratsuyu is going to be fine. Yudachi is going to be fine. Shira's got a lower detect than Yudachi. We talk about how it's the premium version of, but there is a concealment difference. But Yudachi gets both smoke and the torpedo reload booster instead of just one or the other. That's the big difference there. We cover this every time that boat comes up, but yeah, I think a destroyer with a torpedo focus like a cat would be just fine. Actually Z31, what's the range? Aren't they like 10s? I could see somebody trying that because they're long range, but man, I don't like anything else about that boat, so no thank you. That's a good face for it. I think you're well justified. Minsk, no, just do Leningrad if you're gonna do Minsk. Even if you don't own Minsk, it's like $15. If you're gonna try, Leningrad, if you're gonna try Minsk, please just don't.
If you want to play Minsk or Z31, probably because the XP is good, and you're just trying to get through the boat. You're not doing it because you're a friend in the other ship. You're not trying to make friends or
no.
bring one of those, in my opinion.
Well, you might lose a friend if you're trying to get rid of a friend. Just log in Minsk or Z31, and after a couple of matches, you might not have that problem anymore. Yeah, so that's kind of destroyers, guys, and I think that's really it. Is there anything else that we want to talk about with respect of this kind of stuff? I think we're probably done. Chat, anything else from you guys as we kind of wrap this up? I really want to thank you guys for being a part of our discussion today on Brawls. I don't know that I think Brawls is the most popular game mode out there. We talk about clan battles, we talk about ranked, we talk about these things as they come up, and we like to do these special events. I appreciate all you guys for being a part of it. We're still going to stay on and stream at least a little bit more. So if you want to hang out for some battles, we'd love to have you. These special events we do, kind of when these things come out, and they're always a lot of fun. We get to kind of go and paw through the bucket of ships and talk about, what are their attributes, and in a new environment where there may be some different things you have to concern yourself with, like no airplanes, for example, or a limited ship set. Like what are good pairs? But really appreciate you being there. Skada, first time on camera on the stream. Skada, thank you for joining me as a pundit, if you will, on ships. But as we close this up, guys, we want to say thank you again for coming and being a part of the show, supporting the stream, the YouTube channel, and things like that as well. If you're watching this later on YouTube, you probably have been to our Twitch, but maybe not. And if you'd like to come join us, we do this live 3 days a week at twitch.tv/ClydePlaysLive. Come hang out with us live. It's a lot of fun. We like to talk ships, answer questions, and spend time with y'all in chat. We have a good time doing it. So come hang out with us there. So again, thanks guys for being a part of everything. We really had a great time talking about these ships with you. I'm going to do a little close here, or this is our little closing for the YouTube video, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.